Kyurem White is a poorly designed legendary, at least competitively. Back in its debut generation, it was decent, but since then it has fallen off hard. In Gen 9 Ubers, it's sitting all the way down in the D rank, which basically means it's unviable. And it might sound crazy because on paper this thing looks insane. Sky high special attack, solid speed, and one of the best offensive typings you could ask for. So why is Kyurem White so bad competitively, and is there any reason to use it at all? Let's break it down. In Gen 5 Ubers, Kyurem White immediately stood out thanks to its absurd 170 base special attack, the highest of any dragon type Pokemon in the tier. And with a 140 base power Draco Meteor, it could drop devastating nukes that only steel types resisted back then. On top of that, it had Ice Beam as secondary stat. Ice moves were insanely valuable in Ubers, hitting the many dragon and ground types for super effective damage, while also hitting walls like Arceus Grass and Lugia for amazing damage. Now, sure, steel types resist both dragon and ice type moves, but that only really mattered if they were especially bulky, because frailer steel types like Genesect still took massive damage. And Kyurem White had Fusion Flare to deal with the rest, giving it perfect coverage against steel types. Even Heatran, which would normally wall fire type moves, thanks to Flash Fire, was not safe. Kyurem White's ability, Turbo Blaze, ignores abilities completely, so Heatran could not hide behind Flash Fire. And if that wasn't enough, Kyurem White also had more coverage with Focus Blast to punish Tyranitar and Arceus Rock in Sand, and Earth Power to deal with Jirachi in Rain. Kyurem White also had a solid 95 base speed stat. That might not sound crazy fast, but in Ubers it actually matters a lot, since base 90 speed is such a common benchmark. Outspeeding that group is a big deal. Kyurem White often ran Choice Packs to push its damage to absurd levels, or Choice Scarf to take full advantage of its speed. Scarf sets could even use Outrage with its decent 120 base attack, letting it revenge kill Calm Mind Latias while also hitting offensive Kyogre and Blissey for more damage. Sleep Talk was a niche option too, mainly to absorb Dark Void from Darkrai. Non-choice sets also saw play using items like Life Orb, Leftovers or Habanberry to reduce damage from a single dragon type attack. These sets often swapped out a coverage move for Roost or Substitute for more longevity or to ease prediction respectively. So with insane special attack, great coverage and even a useful speed tier, on paper this thing looked unstoppable. But as strong as it was, Kyurem White had some key flaws that kept it from living up to the hype. While Dragon Ice typing is incredible offensively, it is a double-edged sword because defensively, it sucks. Ice typing has always been one of the worst defensive types in the game, and Kyurem White is no exception. The biggest problem is its weakness to Stealth Rock, which forces it to take huge damage every time it switches in, let alone severely limit its opportunities. This weakness also extends to rock type coverage moves, which plenty of Pokemon pack, and it's vulnerable to spikes and toxic spikes too. And remember, in Gen 5, hazards were especially hard to remove. Defog only cleared hazards on the opposing side back then, so your only option was Rapid Spin. Not only were there few good spinners, but Arceus Ghost and Giratina Origin made rapid spinning even harder by blocking the move completely. To get around this, some teams were actually using Espion. With its ability Magic Bounce, Espion could reflect status moves back at the opponent, including all types of hazards, which made Kyurem White much more durable and easier to switch in safely, though it is a very niche strat. Beyond Rock, Kyurem White also has major weaknesses to Dragon, Steel, and Fighting type moves, and it doesn't have many resistances to lean on. Its one real defensive asset is being a Dragon type that is not weak to Ice, which is nice though, don't get me wrong. Combined with its decent bulk, this allowed it to handle some threats like Kyogre, one of the strongest Pokemon in Gen 5 Ubers. While Kyurem White had some notable weaknesses, it was still strong to be a good pick in Gen 5. Unfortunately, that's about as far as it goes, because in the generations that followed, its flaws became even more limiting and it struggled to keep up with the evolving power creep in the Uber's metagame. Gen 6 was not as kind to Kyurem White. On the bright side, it definitely benefited from the new defog mechanics, which now removed hazards from both sides of the field. But the positives pretty much end there, because Gen 6 also introduced fairy types, and suddenly that all-powerful Draco Meteor meant nothing against Pokemon that were completely immune to it. On top of that, Draco Meteor itself was nerfed from 140 base power to 130, and Ice Beam also got nerfed from 95 base power to 90. The new fairy type also gave Kyurem White another weakness, which was brutal in a metagame filled with Xerneas, one of the most dangerous Pokemon ever. And Klefki was also there, which not only resisted Ice Beam, but also could just set up spikes on it. Add in the overwhelming power of the primal Pokemon and Mega Salamence as well, and Kyurem White really struggled to keep up. It still had a niche as it could slice through balance teams, but compared to Gen 5, its place in Ubers had fallen off hard. Gen 7 was even worse for Kyurem White. The rise of Necrozma Duskmane, one of the most defining Pokemon of Ubers ever, pushed it almost completely out of the picture. Duskmane not only resists both of Kyurem's stab moves, but Prism Armor also let it shrug off Kyurem's super effective coverage. On top of that, it has Morning Sun for recovery and can go on the offensive itself by either staying in its bulky form or transforming into Ultra Necrozma and threatening Kyurem head on with its now new Dragon typing. In Gen 8 Ubers, Kyurem White completely dropped off. Heavy duty boots were a huge gift, letting it ignore hazards entirely, something it desperately wanted, but running boots came at a steep cost, which means no choice packs or life orb and a very noticeable drop in power. It did gain Freeze Stride though, which gave it a fantastic Ice Step option to punish bulky water types. The problem was the competition. Eternatus overshadowed it as a Dragon type thanks to its speed, bulk and utility. And if you wanted an Ice type, options like Calyrex Ice Rider and Galarian Darmanitan and even Weavile were better. And for the first time, Kyurem Black outright outclassed it thanks to the major buffs it got in this generation. With all that working against it, Kyurem White was left on the bench in Gen 8. In Gen 9 Ubers, things somehow got even worse for Kyurem White. Petir introduced monsters like Rhydon, Fluttermane and Kingambit, and on top of that, Zacian Crown was now unbanned. Against powerhouses like these, Kyurem White had no real place in the meta. After 4 generations of falling behind, Gen 9 made it clear Kyurem White just isn't built for modern Ubers. Its design leaves it too slow, too frail defensively, and too reliant on raw power in a metagame filled with Pokemon that are faster, bulkier, and more versatile. For a legendary with one of the strongest Draco Meteors in history, that's a pretty sad ending. So what do you think of Kyurem White? Do you see it ever making a comeback in the meta? Drop your thoughts in the comments, I would love to hear them. And if you enjoyed the video, make sure to hit like and subscribe. I post new videos every week on competitive Pokemon, so stick around if that's your thing. And if you would like to support the channel even more, you can become a member for just $1 and I'll feature your name at the end of my videos. Thank you for watching and see you next time.